Hello everybody, I am Charlie from Dr. Wen, and welcome along to a brand new Doctor Who YouTube video. As promised, I am back, and I know I say daily, I didn't do any videos yesterday, but that's because since I started school, I've not really had that much time, so I usually spend 2 days planning, and then I record and publish both of them, so I'm going to do 2 videos every other day instead. So today it's Tuesday, and it's time for Chapter 1 of the second story in my fan series. So I'm going to be doing 12 stories in this fan series. I've already done the first Doctor story, Count Your Shadows, and now I'm doing a second Doctor story called The Horror of Skaro. So yes, it's pretty self-explanatory about what it's about. However, we won't really get that much Dalek action, or even on Skaro, just quite yet. However, this does have a pretty good cliffhanger, and I really enjoyed writing it, and I'm about to really enjoy recording it. So, yeah, feel free to leave your feedback on this first chapter, your initial impressions of the story, and like this video and subscribe to my channel if you enjoy my daily Doctor Who content. So, without further ado, let's get into this video, and I hope you enjoy. So, this is The Horror of Skaro, Chapter 1. A deafening noise rang through Jamie's ears. "What's going on, Doctor?" Jamie spoke, shouting over the infernal noises the TARDIS was making. "I don't know, Jamie. Nothing like this has ever happened before." Another man shouted. He was slightly short, with black hair arranged messily on his head. He wore odd, mismatched clothes, and held a wooden stick in his hand. It had several small holes through it at intervals. It was the Doctor. Slowly, he moved the stick to his mouth, and an awful tune came out of the end. "Doctor, please put your recorder away. We don't have time for this. Something's wrong with the TARDIS." "Don't be daft, Jamie. There's always time for recorder practice." The Doctor's sentence was interrupted by the sudden realization that the horrible TARDIS noises had stopped. "Where are we?" Jamie questioned, looking slightly nervous at the TARDIS's odd behavior today. "Jamie, how am I supposed to know? I'm not an alien who can time travel or anything, am I?" Jamie put his palm to his face, a grin still obviously spreading across it. "Doctor, seriously, where do you think we are?" Jamie asked, a hint of urgency in his voice. "Jamie, I honestly don't know. We should be in Akaten, but the TARDIS says that gravity is way too strong for there. We shall just have to have a look." The Doctor strode over to the doors of the TARDIS, and walked through them, still looking back at Jamie. I'm sure that wherever we are, it will be incredible." Jamie walked out of the TARDIS, following the Doctor. What he saw next was not incredible. The Doctor was beside him, his face sullen and horrified all at once. In front of the pair was a city, but it had been torn to pieces. Huge portions of buildings had been torn off. Some had completely collapsed. Infernos were raging in some parts of the city, and it looked like no one was left alive. It was a freezing, desolate wasteland, devoid of life. Jamie looked at the Doctor again, seeing his reaction. After a few seconds, his face went from horrified to completely and utterly mortified. Jamie followed his gaze, in an attempt to see what was making the Doctor so upset. What the Doctor was looking at were the remains of what looked like a brown clock tower, its clock shattered, and its building almost collapsed. "What's wrong, Doctor? It's just another destroyed building. The entire city has been destroyed." Jamie spoke, confused as to why the building was more important. "Jamie," the Doctor spoke, the childish glee in his voice replaced by coldness and grief. "Do you remember me telling you about London, that huge Earth city that I was going to take you to in a few days?" "Yes, I do, Doctor." "Jamie, welcome to London." "What? How could it have been destroyed like this? What year is it? When was this destroyed?" 1968, Jamie. Where it was supposed to be. And I don't know who destroyed it. What I'm more worried about is that this never happened in Earth's history. Someone destroyed a fixed point in time. The fixed point being that, 1968, Earth isn't supposed to be destroyed. That is literally impossible. A hint of anger seeped into his voice. Jamie didn't blame him. As friendly and clownish as the Doctor was, London was sort of his home, where he was more often than not, and they were standing in its desolate ruins. "What do we do then, Doctor? I say we find out whoever did this." "Yes, definitely, Jamie," the Doctor spoke, returning to his usual self. "I say we start looking in that building right there." He pointed behind himself. Jamie turned his body 180 degrees, and behind him was a huge building. It must have been at least 300 meters tall, and was made entirely of glass, most of which the Doctor and Jamie were standing on. "What is it?" Jamie queried. "It's huge." "That, Jamie, was, or is, the Shard, and I think we should investigate it. See what we find. It is one of the biggest buildings in London, after all. The Doctor and Jamie walked over to the front doors of the building, and walked in. Dust and ash coated the floor and all of the surfaces. A gaping hole sat in the centre of the ceiling, and it went all the way up to the roof. Small fires still flickered in the corners. The Doctor stumbled over to the lift, its glassy doors completely smashed. He walked inside and pressed a button for the top floor. "Doctor, what are you doing? The lift is obviously broken. Why are you even trying to—" Jamie was interrupted by a loud buzzing sound. The Doctor appeared to be holding some sort of device. It was long and metal, and cylindrical, and glinted a deep shade of black. Intricated golden patterns were engraved onto the sides. On the top, a yellow light glowed brightly. "Come on then, Jamie," the Doctor shouted. "We don't have all day, do we?" "We have a time machine, Doctor. We have as many days as we want." A submissive look flashed across the Doctor's face, and Jamie reluctantly strolled over to the lift and stepped inside. "What was that?" Jamie asked. He'd never seen the Doctor use anything but his brains. He wasn't really one for gadgets. "A sonic screwdriver, Jamie. I just got an upgrade. Do you like it?" "Yes, I do. Does it fix things, then?" "To an extent, yes. It can't repair broken glass or physical things, but it can mend circuits and unlock doors, things like that." The Doctor was interrupted by the sound of two lift doors slamming together, minuscule fragments of glass spraying across the lift. One narrowly missed Jamie. Suddenly, the lift moved upwards, and views of the desolate wasteland were replaced by, well, more wasteland. Unfortunately, the lift moved incredibly slowly, a mechanical noise rumbling through it. This meant that the Doctor and Jamie could view most of the destruction by the time they reached the 50th floor. It looked even worse from up here. Parts of the city were still active, it seemed, explosions destroying entire estates and streets in seconds. Dead bodies littered parts of the ground, bombs and grenades piled high beside them. These humans definitely put up a fight, Jamie thought to himself. This was more of a war than an invasion. "Some of my greatest friends lived here, you know," the Doctor spoke coldly, a tear welling up in his right eye. "Ian and Barbara. You'd like them." Jamie had never seen the Doctor this distraught before. He was used to a cheery, clownish alien. His friend, the Doctor. Now, something the Doctor loved had been completely taken from him. Something Jamie had never witnessed before. The Doctor and Jamie stood there in silence for a few more minutes, then a ping sound echoed throughout the lift. They had reached the 96th floor. The floor looked remarkably similar to the ground floor, except much higher up, and the ceiling was pointed instead of flat. Or it would have been had the top not have been destroyed. "Let's split up then, Jamie. Let's just look for clues about who did this." Jamie walked over to the other side of the room, investigating an enormous pile of rubble. He did find some odd, out-of-place things. First, a gun. Then some odd pieces of metal, a bronze spherical ball, some white sheets, and a weird metal pole. It sort of looked like some kind of eye stalk. Meanwhile, the Doctor checked the second lift, right next to where he and Jamie had just come from. Apprehensively, he pushed the button. The metal doors opened, and what the Doctor saw shocked him. Jamie heard the now metal doors open behind him. Turning slowly, what he saw was indeed shocking. Slowly, the figure moved towards him. "Exterminate." So, to be continued. So I hope you've enjoyed that, everybody. I did have quite a lot of fun writing it, lots of description about this destroyed city. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I think it had quite a lot of, mystery, like, why is London destroyed in 1968? That's not really supposed to happen, and I did really enjoy writing for the second Doctor and Jamie as well. I think, not that writing for the other characters was boring, but I think the characters of Ian and the first Doctor are very straightforward characters to write for, but the second Doctor's more of a funny character, so, he's more enjoyable to write for, in my opinion. I definitely really enjoyed writing this, and definitely enjoyed recording it too, so feel free to post your opinions down below in the comments on your opinions on this chapter, and the story so far, and yes, I hope you enjoyed. Next time. So tomorrow I'm going to be ranking all 6 episodes of the third Doctor story, The Mind of Evil, since after all it is Tuesday. So yeah, I hope you enjoy that, and I'll see you then. Goodbye.